Welcome back to Starfish Coaching. I'm Eric Lee. Today, for my Founder Success interview series, I have the honor of interviewing Stephanie Fiteni. Stephanie is a content marketing strategist and also a marketing coach for coaches. But before she became that, she actually had her own full-fledged agency doing a lot of different marketing and advertising. And she went full circle from solo to large agency and now back down to solo. And there's some really good learnings that she's going to share with us in this interview. So now let's welcome Stephanie. Today, for my Founders Success interview series, I have the pleasure of having Stephanie Fiteni on as my guest. Stephanie is a content marketing strategist and traffic growth coach. She helps clients generate more leads and clients through blogs and their websites. She started off her entrepreneur journey as a teacher. She taught herself programming and spent many years teaching as a vocation and coding to make money. So I'd like to introduce Stephanie. Stephanie, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on.
Hello, Eric. Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Yes, I'd love to just take a quick minute for you to continue introducing yourself, because there's so many aspects of you. I'd love you to just share with our audience what you're doing now, and we'll dive a bit into your journey and how you got here.
That's right. So these days I coach exclusively. So I have left the done for you behind me mostly, although I do have some VIP clients, coaches as well, that I actually work with and, still do content and SEO, especially for. But for a long time, my business was in shift. So, as you know, I went from agency, and obviously there was a build up to that. But then the agency grew too fast, and I kind of wanted to really change the structure and the size of the business, and especially downsize the whole structure. I had business partners and sort of all these different departments to manage, and it got a little bit out of hand.
Right.
And this is something actually I use in my work a lot, because I'm very aware of how you can create something and it gets a bit out of hand. It's like creating something that's a little bit of a monster, where it's like so much bigger than you or what you wanted. And it all depends on your personality and what you desire. I mean, my business partners were actually perfectly happy with the way the business was. Um, but I got into business more for freedom than for money. So it was a little bit of a different journey for me. But yeah, sort of that's sort of, I imagine, the most important part of the journey. I kind of realized that for me personally, I was on the wrong path, although I was doing well. And then I worked really hard to kind of shape that company into something that I can love and enjoy more. And that is what I do today.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you found that right mix for you. I help a lot of business owners grow a company, but there definitely is different,
Mhm.
I guess, stages to any company, right? There's the growth, and then maybe it gets to a certain size that's not manageable, and then you're trying to find that kind of right size for you. With my own firm, I actually had something similar. I think my firm grew to about almost 60, and it got to a point where I felt like, wow, that's like we're growing too quick, too fast, and the values
Mhm.
of the company that I built on, which is quality and excellence, was being lost. So for me, I quickly looked at that and said, okay, there's something not going on, or not feeling right here, right? It's hard to describe, but that's when I kind of put on the brakes and right size a little bit down. And now we're down to about 35 people, and it feels much better. So I think, like you, every business owner need to go through that and find out what's that sweet spot for them, isn't it?
That's right. And it's like you said, it's about the way it feels. Because you can have 10 different people in the same situation in the same business, and they can feel completely different. So you really need to sort of learn to listen to what different things make you feel. and how you feel about different things. What are your core values in life, because some people are very motivated by money. So, maybe rapid growth is for them. But if you're not very easily motivated by money, but you're motivated by other things, for instance, I am very excited about innovation, about, keeping up to, getting into the detail of things. So for me, SEO is a great thing to sort of get into, because there's always new things and you can go into a lot of detail. So it's also finding these things that kind of light you up, because not everybody is going to have the same triggers, the same, well, you could call them happy triggers that keep you going, because it's hard to stick to something in the long run if it doesn't have these little things that energize you.
Yeah, for sure. I think let's dive right into it, because I think it'll be really valuable for our audiences who are business owners and they're growing their business. But then there are some who's maybe near the tail end of their career and have built up an agency and now deciding what is right for them. So I'd
Mhm.
love to hear your journey of it,
Mhm.
from the start to the growth, and to what were the decisions behind right sizing it for yourself.
Okay, so the first thing was that, you know, you start off and you kind of really happy you have your sort of first wave of clients. In my case, it wasn't very hard, because I had been a freelance for a number of years, almost, well, more than a decade. And my husband was a very well-known creative director locally. So we actually had quite a lot of contacts and people who were already wanting to work with us before we started. So that was lucky. But what happens then is that, especially if you're not very clear about the exact structure you want in the beginning, and very few people are, I suppose, you kind of end up doing what clients ask. So, a client asks for a website and then they need their logo. And then they're like, oh, because we also want to do this social media quiz, and we also want, and the jobs start growing into things that you didn't really picture yourself doing, but you know that you can pick up the phone and make them happen.
Yes.
So you kind of expand into all these things in a way because you really want to serve your clients and because you want to keep them. But then I think once the client list grows and you start doing all these different things, you become a little bit frazzled. And
Yes.
one thing we noticed was that we were doing so many different things that our clients were finding it actually hard to refer us. So the first step actually that we took was I took a good look at the whole client list, and we took a look at what we were offering, and we decided to productize the services.
Okay.
And actually, this was fantastic for sales. So, for instance, we started creating bundles of the services that should go together.
Right.
And when we didn't want to service certain clients in certain things, we provided them with training and support so they could do them in house. So I thought, well, it's good for everybody if, we support our clients into actually managing to do what we cannot actually do for them. Well, the truth is we could do it, but maybe not at a profit sometimes.
Right.
So we started creating these bundles, and it worked really well, especially for sales, because what we could do then, once we'd been in business about 3-4 years, we could see the seasonality of things. We could see the
Yes.
bottlenecks, because the end of year is a bottleneck, and then you have, usually the summer months are really quiet. So we just saw this kind of seasonality. So we decided to sort of create these different bundles with special prices. So, for instance, if you ordered your Christmas bundle by the end of September and didn't wait till October, November to do that, you got, for instance, 20% off or 10% off. So we kind of really, really managed to get clients to work with us a little bit better. And at the same time, we kind of really started sticking to those services that are more profitable. One thing that really helped, actually, and it really made a difference to the bottom line, is something that was practically invisible in the company. We used to have a lot of clients, especially with web design, who ask you for a little change. So you have all these sort of little jobs in the job list,
List.
and it probably takes more time to invoice them than it does to actually understand the job and get it done. So we actually created like a minimum rate.
Okay.
So we said no matter what your minimum order is, it's going to cost you say 80 euros. So people would either wait until they have a bigger request, or they would be very happy to pay it because they really want it done.
Right,
And
right,
that made a massive difference to our bottom line, because these little tiny 10-minute jobs were draining a lot of time and taking focus away from the bigger, well paying jobs,
right,
and not giving much profit because they cost so much in admin that it's just not worth it,
right.
you know.
No, that's actually what
Uh,
you shared there are some really good tips, and I just want to maybe pause a little bit and recap for our audience.
mhm,
I heard a few things, and we can expand into it. One was in the beginning, you haven't defined your niche yet, I guess, and there's so many service out there that your clientele doesn't really know what you do, right? I actually
mhm.
often coach on this, and the example I like to give is your storefront. If your storefront displays a lot of things, they can't tell if you're a butcher, a retail shop, a grocer, because you have so many services that if you just niche down, then someone walking by a busy street can quickly identify what are you selling and then decide to go in the shop or not. Would you say that's valid for what was happening in the beginning with your agency?
Yeah, I see that's definitely a good way of looking at it.
The other tip that you gave was really good in the sense that there are a lot of little distractions, and I think the what you did was a great way of handling these little client requests where, from a client service perspective, you don't want to deny them, but yet it still is one distraction. And do you really want to charge for that? It's too small to actually spend the time to invoice. Yeah, so what you did to put in that minimum charge, I think is a great tip that many business owners can learn from.
That's right. And we actually tried something that didn't work. And we actually tried to give like these support packages where people could buy, say, X amount of hours for a year for these little urgent jobs. But people didn't really want to buy it because they couldn't visualize what these things they would need were going to be.
Right.
So sometimes, I mean, it's also good to know what didn't work, I suppose.
For sure. So your agency, how big did it grow to when you kind of felt it wasn't right for you, and then you brought it back down?
Well, we had about 12 people in the studio and about 3 people in admin, and a number
Okay,
of outsourced suppliers, of course. But we kind of had this feeling as well, like even in terms of profitability, and analyzing things with business specialists and looking at the local sphere and how other agencies were competing, it was very clear for us that we had to take a decision. So either get smaller or hit the 30 plus mark, because those seem to be the sweet spots when it comes to profitability. So it became a little bit of a conundrum. So do we grow these things that are like, you know, maybe dying a natural death in the industry anyway? Or do we sort of just downsize and refocus on what's really profitable and grow that profit?
got it. Okay. So at that moment when you decided, or I guess I'm trying to understand the
Hmm.
trigger for you,
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
every business owner there's a
Hmm.
different trigger. But for you,
Yes.
what was not sitting well, and what
Yes.
made you question the size that you were at?
Okay, so one thing was definitely the fact that I had a young daughter, And it was very difficult for me to have flexibility within my job. I did, sort of create online tools that I could manage team remotely, but there was still a lot of hands-on requirements. I really needed to be in the office, so that was one of the main things for me. Another thing that was always niggling at me, I always wanted an online business. So for me, this felt like really heavy and cumbersome compared to what my dream business was. And there was also the difficulty that I was managing this with my husband, who's had a very different background. So, they were used to doing print and TV ads, very sort of traditional. So balancing that, see, and this I think was the way we needed to take a big decision where when you have business partners that are working in the company, you cannot very easily just say, okay, this kind of work is not profitable anymore, we're going to get rid of it, if it's the work they joined the company to do, because they're, it's like the founders team. So in a way, I would say, if as much as possible, if you want to have freedom, set up your own business, not with business partners, and maybe bring them in later if there is chemistry with what you have. But not before you have vision. And I think that was our mistake, because we were all involved in this. We came with baggage, we came with talents, and we came with skills. But there was this contrast of what's happening in the industry. And it's very hard. I mean, you must come across this, Eric. Sometimes you have businesses where perhaps the best thing for them is to maybe not have the founders work in the business itself. So some serious decisions need to be taken there. And I think that's as we were approaching that phase. That
Right.
phase.
No, I totally hear you. And actually, I get pulled in a lot to businesses to help them with that, because what happens is a business typically grows organically with the founder or founders,
Mm-hmm.
and they never really
Mm-hmm.
do a deep dive into what their values are, their vision, their mission, and they just grow for the sake of bringing in contracts.
That's right.
Uh, and then eventually, when they get to a point where they have a lot of contracts and they have the luxury to take the foot off the gas pedal and really question why do they exist and what do they like to do, then they find that, oh, between the partners and the founders, there's a misalignment. So it's exactly what you're talking about. There's this misalignment that never got vetted out in the beginning. So I think your tip is great in the sense that if you do start something, start it on your own, get it to a certain point, and then bring in partners that align with your vision and your values. Or if you have a partner, then my advice would be to really vet out the values, the vision of the founders together to make sure you're on the right path.
Yes. And do it with a professional like Eric, because you do need somebody else in the room. I think
Yes,
it's really
exactly.
hard to
It
do it
is
by yourself.
tough because you're looking inward, and many people just don't have the tools to look inward, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And in fact, you mentioned niching before, and I think that was actually one of the very first symptoms, because when we sat down and we started looking for niches, and of course this is where you start looking for your strengths, for your most profitable clients. So when you're at that point, you start looking at a lot of things in the business, and we kind of realized that there wasn't enough synergy between the different partners for us to actually have the same niche. In fact, we picked more than one, and they both worked. They both worked because they were being sold in a different way. So we actually had picked at one stage, we wanted to boost the sort of traditional side. And we're like, okay, but we do a lot of content marketing, social media, and we kind of need to focus on one target audience with that. And we had decided to focus on B2B tech companies and SaaS companies. But then we realized sort of that the printing department and the design department didn't have the same strengths. And obviously, to sell a lot of print, SaaS company is not going to cut it. That's it,
Right, of
because they
course.
don't print anything most of the time. So we focused on companies that were reaching their 10-year anniversary. So, suddenly we were doing all these booklets about, 10-year anniversary, and they'd have parties and special events, and they'd have all this merchandise. And so it was great for the traditional stuff. Um,
So you
um,
found your target market.
yeah, so we found a target market for that as well. But that showed that there was a big disconnect between the talents, the beliefs, because I was managing the programmers, the writers, the social media and marketing section. And my husband and his business partner were more involved in the audiovisual, the TV ads, the identities, the traditional side of things. So there was a big disconnect with what we believed would work, and also the speed we could move at, which is makes a big difference. When you're in tech, you get used to a fast pace, and but traditional stuff kind of moves a lot slower,
Yes, for sure. That's interesting. So now you found your happy spot in terms of kind of company size and structure. Maybe tell us a bit about what that is and what you're doing.
Yeah, so I actually went very drastic. So it was a very dramatic change. The first thing I did was I actually took a look at what was the most profitable and dropped everything else.
Makes sense?
And yeah, it was just as easy. It wasn't easy actually, but it was because you have to have a lot of conversations with your clients,
Yes.
so that they can understand what changes you're making, why you're making them. And of course, you have to make sure that you're just not dropping people suddenly. If you've
Yes.
designed someone's website, you need to support it at least for a minimum of 3 years. You can't just say that's it.
Right. Of course.
So there are things involved like selling parts of the company, for instance. We used to do hosting and email support, and we sold that to actually one of our employees who was breaking away.
Great. Okay.
So we kind of really broke it down into the little departments, kind of become companies in their own right. And one of the things I did was I kept the web design and the SEO and the writing because it's something I really loved. And then I slowly started shifting to this hybrid model. So if you want to do it, you can outsource it to us. If you don't want to do it, if you do want to do it in house, we can train you to do it.
Okay. Nice.
And then a lot of people started going with this sort of hybrid package. So they were like, okay, you do it for us for 6 months, and during those 6 months, we'll learn everything we can from you.
Right.
And it's made a really nice transition. So it lasted longer than I would have liked it to. It lasted a couple of years,
Okay.
but I couldn't complain because I was working with clients I liked. I could pick and choose because when you downsize, that's the great thing. You
Yes.
can really just keep the clients you like, basically, which is a big privilege. And and yeah, and then I started doing more and more teaching. And eventually, sort of my coaching practice just became so busy just through booking these SEO discovery calls that it grew very organically. And in reality, any creative person could have done this in the sense if you can write or you can create a video and transcribe it because that works as well. Then in reality, you can sell anything because the goal of it is to get people on a call. Once you get
Right.
people on a call, then actually there's probably going to be a much higher percentage of people who want you to do it for them than the ones that actually want to learn. So if you're doing a creative service, if you're offering something, then SEO will work great for you. And then all you need to worry about is actually how to do your proposals, create your packages, and actually make that call work for you. Yeah.
No, that's great. So that's really awesome. I'm glad that you found that sweet spot for yourself, and it is an online business, right? That's one thing you've been wanting to do. So congratulations on that.
Yes, and I very naively, when I first started, I was so excited. I had my first few clients, from Switzerland and from Singapore, were my first few clients, and from Abu Dhabi and Belgium and the UK, and then it started growing. And I got this map, and I thought, wouldn't it be great to actually see every country, with a pin where I'm getting clients? Um, it didn't work though; it got out of hand. But it did make me much better at geography.
Yes. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your insight. Do tell us what clients you're looking for now in your current setup as a business, and also how do we reach you?
Excellent. So at the moment, I work mostly with clients who are coaches or virtual assistants. So I also work with those service providers who actually want to help other service providers and coaches and therapists to actually do their marketing. So I actually train other marketers and virtual assistants as well. Um, you know, it helps them, especially if they're in the beginning, because they can get certified that they've done the system, and then the system is proven to work, with its testimonials and everything. So you do need a blueprint that is going to work. You just learn that, and then you kind of do it for your
Yes.
clients.
Okay.
So that's basically what I'm doing with service providers. And of course, if you want to know more, you can find me at stephaniefiteni.com. And yeah, that's the best place to find me. If you Google me, you'll also find my social media. But admittedly, I am not really always there. I tend to automate a lot. So you're much more likely to find me on the website, where you can just book a call with me. That's the easiest way to reach me.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much again, Stephanie. It's been great getting some knowledge from you and learning a bit about your journey. Some really good tips there for business owners who's kind of growing and maybe feeling overwhelmed and maybe misaligned, and considering their options to either downsize, right size, or go solo, right? It's a full circle almost.
That's right. And then, it comes full circle, and then you start growing again.
Yes.
But, when you've made all the mistakes, you kind of don't have to make them again, which is great.
You're a lot wiser. Okay, well, thank you again,
That's
Stephanie,
right.
and thank you so much for being on my podcast here.
Oh, thank you very much, Eric. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another of my Founder Success Secrets interview, this time with Stephanie. I hope Stephanie's journey had given you some insight for your business, whether it's growing or right sizing. There's something to be captured here in these nuggets of wisdom. If you like this video, please share it with your network so that they can get value from it. Also, please like and subscribe to support my channel so I can bring more of these wisdoms and nuggets of knowledge to you.